in a busy world, it's a busy time when busy people buy gifts at the mall for their busy friends. What if a place like Hanes Mall actually saved you time by, wrapping gifts you bought there for free? Well, with all that free time, you could, I don't know, hobnob with royalty, win the Nobel Peace Prize, or just go buy something for yourself. Free gift wrap from Hanes Mall. It isn't world peace, but it's a start.
Hello, this is Billy Core from the Nostalgia Mall, and welcome to the first part of a 5-part series where every Tuesday in July we're going to be exploring a part of Winston-Salem, North Carolina. This is a city that is very, very special to me because this is where my church is. This is where most of my family lives on my mother's side. I'm here at least once a week, sometimes twice, so this is kind of a second hometown to me. Geographically, Winston-Salem is located directly west of Greensboro. It's Greensboro's neighboring city. And it's a very, very big city. I believe it's the 5th largest in North Carolina. So it's smallest, largest city, if it makes sense to you. But anyway, by the way, the footage from the following videos this month, the parts where you see me driving, like right here, the voiceover work is being completely redubbed because when I was using the dashboard mount in the car, all you could hear from my cell phone audio was just rattling noises. You could not hear me talking at all. So, annoyingly, I'm going to have to redub everything that was recorded from the dashboard of the car. So, yeah, that's pretty annoying. So right now we are heading west down Interstate 40 into Winston-Salem. And in this video, we're going to be exploring another mall. But what's unique about this mall compared to the other malls that I've shown on this channel before, this one is not dead or dying. This one, on the contrary, is a very, very healthy and thriving and healthy mall. And it's a mall that a lot of locals who are watching this video are probably familiar with. This mall is Hanes Mall. Hanes Mall opened in 1975, and it was originally anchored by Jcpenney, Belk's, Tallheimers, and Sears. And in 1990, it was expanded with a completely new section of the mall, adding more anchors, including Dillard's. And Tallheimers moved from their smaller location over to a bigger spot here on the new part of the mall. Of course, Tallheimers became Hecht's in 1992, and then Hecht's became Macy's in the mid-2000s, which is what's in that spot right now at Hanes Mall, Macy's. So, why do I like this mall? Well, I have a lot of very, very fond memories of going to this mall growing up. This is my second favorite mall of all time, actually, second only to Carolina Circle Mall, of course. Every Wednesday when I was a kid in the mid-90s, my mom would take me here before choir practice at church that she would attend, and we would meet family there and go shop and just have a lot of fun. And I have so many fond memories of this mall. Unfortunately, it did have a major renovation done sometime in the early 2000s, I want to say around 2002, 2003. It lost a good bit of its charm, but thankfully the mall is still there and still thriving, and I guess that's what really matters. I do wish I had more pictures of the mall before the early 2000s renovation, but you take what you can get. Throughout the video you might see some pictures I've edited in of the mall from before the early 2000s renovation. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to continue driving to Hanes Mall, and we'll take a tour of the outside, drive around, and then go inside the mall. So stick with me, we'll get there in a moment. Alright, we're now on Haines Mall Boulevard, which is an appropriate name for this road because this is the best way to get to Haines Mall, as we're doing right now. I'm going to make a left. This is how I usually get to the mall, so this is how you're going to see it from my perspective, I guess. So, yep, here's the mall. It's a really, really big place. Probably the biggest mall in North Carolina, possibly. Don't quote me on that. That's not exactly a fact. Just my personal opinion. But anyway, we're going to take a tour of the outside, starting with the section that was added in 1990. Right here you can see Macy's, which was originally Thalheimer's, then became Hecht's, and now is Macy's. So we're just going to do a circle around the mall. Sorry you won't be able to maybe get the best footage, but again, I'm not a professional mall guy, so over there is the main entrance to the new part of the mall. Used to be a Ruby Tuesday at that entrance, but it closed about a year or two ago, not sure why. And there's the H&M that opened a few years ago. And we're approaching Jcpenney, and the interesting thing about Jcpenney is not only was it an original anchor to this mall, but it was but it's how you access both parts of the mall. To get from one part of the mall to another, you've actually got to pass through Jcpenney, which is quite bizarre. So now we're in the original 1975 section of the mall. We just passed where Eckerd Drug used to be, which was originally Thalheimer's before they moved to the new part. But now it's a Forever 21. There's the main entrance to the old part of the mall, including TGI Fridays, which I believe was originally an Annabelle's restaurant. And right here is the Dave & Buster's restaurant and arcade that opened up just a couple of months ago. Never been to one of those, but I hear they're really, really cool. And here is where Sears used to be. I forgot to mention that the Sears location at this mall unfortunately went out of business, I think in January of this year, so it was really, really sad. This is the only part of the mall that's really struggling, I guess because they lost the anchor, but the hospital across the street, owned by Novant Health, has purchased the Sears location here and is going to be turning it into supposedly offices, I guess, for the hospital. But still, very sad to see Sears go. Thankfully, the one in Greensboro is still alive, but just barely. And you can see where the old Sears Auto Center used to be. Okay, we're going to head to the opposite side of the mall, where we'll find the other side of the former Sears. Yeah, and that scared the living daylights out of me when that police car sped by with its lights on. As you can see here, this is where the outside entrance to Belk's is. Belk's has a very, very interesting design language at this location. I wasn't able to get it on camera this time, but just take my word for it, it does look pretty cool. There are pictures online of it, so I highly recommend checking that out. Very nice little entrance right there. Of course, Belk's using their logo they've had since about 2010, 2011, I want to say. And still creeping around Belk's. Alright, made it past Belk's, and coming up here is a secondary entrance for the mall, for the 1975 section. And here's Jcpenney once again, where we'll, once we pass by here, we'll be back at the newer section of the mall, built in 1990. And here's the outside entrance to Dillard's. Interesting thing about Dillard's at this mall, of course it was built with the new part in 1990. It was originally going to be Ivy's because because Dillard's used to be Ivy's back in the day, and when they built it in 1990, Dillard's had just bought out Ivy's, so before the new section of the mall opened up, they had to quickly change out all the Ivy signs for Dillard's signs, and there you have it. I think that's true at least, don't quote me. And there's a secondary entrance to the new part of the mall. And here's the other side of Macy's. And we're going to turn just a bit away from the mall momentarily, just to show you an interesting out parcel to this mall, or a formerly interesting out parcel to this mall, I should say. So that's why we're making this turn over here. Now this building to the left of you, next to Dick's Sporting Goods, called Roosters I think it is, used to be a movie theater that was built with the mall back in the 70s. And I remember seeing The Hunchback of Notre Dame back in 1997 at that theater when it came out. So I don't know how long the theater's been closed. I think it closed sometime in the 2000s. So I'm going to drive back around to where we entered the mall parking lot from, and we're going to head on inside. Alright, we're going to head on into the Malaviya Jcpenney. This is where I usually go in at because you get access to both sides of the mall, the original and the new. And again, I'm using my new camera glasses here. Hopefully it's stable enough for you guys. So we're going to start out by looking at the original 1975 section of the mall, which is going to be to our right. I was here kind of earlier in the morning at like 10 o'clock or so, so I got stuck behind some mall walkers. So again, we're going to head into the old part of the mall from the 70s. And here we go. Again, showing Jcpenney wasn't really that important. I just wanted to show how to get from one part of the mall to another. And here we are. This is how the mall looks inside. Again, this mall was renovated in the early 2000s. I'll try and put a couple of pictures right here of how the mall originally looked. In fact, I think it looked a little bit better back then, but that's just me. Malls since the 2000s have just gotten way too generic looking, unfortunately, and sadly, this is no exception. So, yeah, a lot of little kiosks lying around here. If the mall looks a little bit deadish right now, that's just because it's I recorded this early on a Friday morning before the heat of the day and all the crowds were in the mall. This mall does get quite busy, mainly on the weekends. Alright, we're heading to what is the center court of the mall. Well, the original center court. This is one of two center courts, one here and one in the new part that we'll see later. It's like two different malls in one, when you think about it. And here's where the mall entrance to Belk is. The entrance, other than the sign, doesn't really look all that different from how it did in 1975, believe it or not. So that's always glad to see. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And to the left is was a Wake Forest University souvenir shop. And right there is the mall's carousel. Yes, this mall does have a carousel. It was added in the early 2000s renovation. We'll take a closer look at it momentarily. I just want to show where this little wing goes. Right there, directly in front, is the kiosk for Annie Ann's Pretzels. I used to go to Annie Ann's at this mall all the time as a kid, except back then it was in the new part of the mall, in an actual part of the mall, and not just a kiosk. Right in here is where Frankenstein hot dogs used to be. Very good hot dog place, not there anymore, unfortunately. And here's the GameStop. And TGI Fridays, originally I believe this was Annabelle's, which also had a location at Carolina Circle Mall in the 80s. So we're going to walk back into the main part of the mall here. Try to get a good shot of the carousel here. That wasn't me, by the way. This is called the Venetian Carousel. At least it was when it was first built in the 2000s. I rode it once when it first opened, when I was still a preteen. But riding it nowadays as an adult, that's just creepy if you don't have a son or daughter with you. So now we're heading towards where Sears used to be. You can see they've got one of those trampoline bungee type deals right here. It's been there for maybe about 10 years, I guess. I've never played on it. I've always been too old for that. It's called Mall Jump. And to the right is Dave & Buster's, though I could not for the life of me figure out where the entrance to it was. So now we're getting closer to Sears. It's looking sadder and sadder the closer we get. By the way, we're only mainly going to be looking at the first floor of this mall. This mall is so big that if we looked at both the first and second floors, we'd be here all day. So apparently they expect long lines getting into Dave & Buster's. As you can tell from that arrow on the right that you just saw a moment ago. Some kind of roller coaster simulator there for kids. And here's the former entrance to Sears. I have a lot of memories of coming here with my grandmother as a kid every Christmas. We would always look at the mannequin of Santa Claus, who would have a list, and we'd always see if my name was on the list. It was a tradition for the two of us every year, and I'll never forget those days. So now we're going to head back the other direction, and what we're going to do now is we're actually going to walk from one end of the mall to the opposite end. And you'll be able to judge for yourself just how big this place really is. So, I'll probably stop talking right here until we get back to Jcpenney. So, we'll see you when we get there. I do want to briefly touch upon why I record malls using a camera built into glasses, or sunglasses in this case. Well, it's kind of a known fact that, especially since the days of 9/11 happening, malls and other businesses similar to this seriously frown upon people taking cameras into these places and taking photography and filming. And I've been stopped before, unfortunately, and it's very, very scary. As a matter of fact, this happened as recently as last year to me. Even though I had my old camera glasses with me at the time, I was still stupid enough to do this. Do you remember my video from last year of when we went to Eden Mall up in Eden, North Carolina? Well, after I recorded the footage from my camera glasses, I got a little bit too full of myself and decided to go back inside and record everything in the mall on my smartphone. Well, I was most of the way through the mall when a mall employee, it was some middle-aged woman, the best way to describe it, approached me and asked me if I was recording, and I said yes, you caught me, and she got kind of upset with me, and was not one of my proudest moments of my life. It upset me quite a bit, and in fact, she even said, and I quote, "I better not see this posted online." Well, I posted it anyway, the camera glasses footage at least. The part from the phone, including the confrontation there, was deleted, but I posted it anyway. Now right here is Forever 21, which is originally where Tallheimer's was, and in the 90s it was a Eckerd drugstore, which is where we would come into the mall sometimes from. So now we're going to walk back into Jcpenney, and you'll see firsthand how you get from one side of the mall to the other. You literally have to walk through Jcpenney to get to the other side. So yeah, back to what I was talking about before. This is why I use very, very discreet forms of photography, such as camera glasses. You do compromise a little bit of quality, but this is pretty much the safest way to go about recording in a area like this, where photography and videography, for that matter, is frowned upon. And if you want to do your own type of videos like this, I highly recommend getting a pair of camera glasses like this. So anyway, we're already almost at the entrance to the other side of the mall. This is the part of the mall that was opened in October of 1990. And this really expanded the mall quite a bit. And here we are now. Now the store here that you can see on the right, called the Runway, was originally a Suncoast movie store where I bought a whole lot of videotapes back when I was a kid. Suncoast, as you know, doesn't exist anymore. There's a candy store there. There might be a Suncoast or two still around, but don't quote me on that. And to the left is the new H&M store that opened a few years ago. It's a pretty high dollar clothing store, so and plus the styles there really aren't for me anyway. I wear roughly plain looking clothes, so and we're approaching the center court of the 1990 section of the mall. At Easter time, in the center core of this mall back in the 90s, there would be an Easter-themed carousel, which was really, really cool. Of course, having an Easter-themed carousel at this mall is now kind of redundant, since there's a all-year-round carousel on the other end of the mall now. And here's where the main entrance to the new part of the mall is. You can see there's Cinnabon right there. And right there is where Ruby Tuesday used to be. Ate there a few times. Pretty good restaurant. Right there is where Dairy Queen and Orange Julius used to be. So now we're going to head toward the Macy's wing. Alright. A lot of memories of this section of the mall. This is where the original Annie Ann's used to be. It was down the hall here near Macy's. They recently built a little playground for young children right outside of Macy's. That's where all that noise is coming from. I think right there is where the Everything's a Dollar store used to be. I loved that store growing up. Used to be one at Carolina Circle Mall as well. And here's FYE Music and Video. Originally Camelot music. Lots and lots of fond memories from when this was Camelot music. You can still see the old blue neon from when it was Camelot. The world was a better place when it was covered in blue neon. But yeah, I'm glad FYE itself is still there. That's probably the store I go to the most here at this mall. Yes, I still sometimes buy physical CDs. I'm kind of old school that way. So now we're going to head back to the center court, and we're actually going to head upstairs for a short bit. So I'll shut up for a short time. Okay, right here is where Dillard's is. Again, when it was built, it was originally going to be Ivy's, but before the new part of the mall opened, they had to change all the signs over to Dillard's. Again, I don't know if that's fact or not. So anyway, we're going to head up this escalator, and we're going to check out the mall's food court, which is directly above us. I mean, not directly, but... Alright. And here's the food court. Lots and lots of fond memories of eating here with my mom and family here growing up. We would always eat at Burger King, which is no longer here, but I'll show you where it used to be. And I'm even going to post in a picture of how the food court looked in the 90s, because I actually have a picture of that. The Chick-Fil-A right here is where Burger King used to be. And I've always been amused by this giant digital clock standing up here. I don't know why, but I've always been fascinated by it. It's been there since it was built in 1990. Where Mandarin Express is where Chick-Fil-A was in the 90s. Or actually, it was where Burgers and Shakes is going to be someday. You saw the coming soon sign there momentarily ago. There's Sparrow. That's always been there, I believe. There's a Philly steak restaurant. I think that used to be a cookie store. Okay, now we're going to head back towards downstairs, I believe. Here's the here's a good shot of the food court area. Okay, just for you elevator enthusiasts out there, I'm not one myself, but a lot of you are. We're going to take a ride on this elevator, which I've rarely been on in my life. But for the sake of the video, we're going to take a ride with you guys. So we're going to head upstairs. It's a shame they put this stupid Metro PCS ad around the elevator, which is quite annoying. But it does get a little bit better right there. Got some kind of stupid mesh around the glass, so that's kind of obstructing our view. And now we're going to head back towards Jcpenney. Okay, now we're going to head to something that's kind of special to me. Something very unique. It's a store that's no longer here at this mall, but it was a store called Software Etc. You may have heard of this place. It's a store that sold computer games. In fact, they specialize in computer games, I believe. And my aunt would take me here as a kid, and we would buy a computer game to play on her Gateway 2000 every Wednesday night, while my mom would be at choir practice, and she would, my aunt would keep an eye on me. And we're going to, after this shot of the mall corridor here, we'll head over there. It's right next to where this Watchworks place is. It was formerly a Payless shoe store, but it's not there anymore. It's abandoned, but yep, here's where Software Etc. used to be. Got many a computer game there, and I miss it. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and end this video here. Expect new videos about Winston-Salem every Tuesday in July, and regular videos as scheduled on Wednesdays. So until next time, this is Billy Core, signing off. Thank you for visiting the Nostalgia Mall. If you liked what you saw, please like, subscribe, and follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also support me on Patreon if you would like. The link to all of these are down below. Until next time, this is Billy Core, signing off.